You're listening to the Music Business Breakthrough Podcast with me, your host, Grammy-nominated artist and certified trauma-informed success coach, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. Let's talk about pitching. Some people love it, some people hate it, but either way, there is a right and a wrong way to pitch, no matter who you're talking to. So we're going to look at the 3 parts of pitching that often get overlooked, and we just think about pitching as like throwing something out there and hoping that someone does what we want them to do. So the before, the during, and the after. Let's talk about before you pitch anything to anyone. I'm not talking about promotion, by the way, or writing an email to an entire fan list. I'm talking about when you have something that you want from a particular person. So you could be pitching to a music venue, to a music supervisor. You could be pitching to a potential collaborator. But either way, we're going to assume for this conversation that this pitch is happening over email. So this could be in text, it could be a phone call, it could be in person, but let's just use an email so that we're all on the same page. Before you sit down and write this email, before you have the conversation, whatever it is, you want to think about what's your intended intention for this particular interaction. I'm not talking about ultimately. But if you just met someone through someone else maybe, and you're saying, hi, my friend introduced me to you, I would be interested in getting to know what you do, I want to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to immediately say, hey, will you fund my album for $20,000? Or hey, can I play at your venue? You're going to have a different milestone for this particular invitation. So what is the thing that you want from this exact interaction, this particular email, this particular phone call? So once you're clear on your intention, then you can get to the during, the crafting the pitch. Crafting the pitch is a lot simpler than a lot of musicians make it out to be, and it's also a lot shorter. We do not want to share our life stories in this pitch, whether they know us or they don't know us. We want to solve a problem for this person that they are going to be an absolute yes. If we solve their problem, they're going to see the value in whatever we are pitching. We don't need to convince them with our accolades and our backstory and who we know and name dropping and all of this stuff. That's very, very secondary, and it's great if you have all of that cool information on a website and you can put that link to your website in your signature. Side note, your signature should only have one link, not 10 different links to your Spotify and your socials and your website, blah, blah, blah. Everything should live on one place. That's why I love a good, strong website. So let's get to this pitch. The first thing you want to do is in the first sentence is get related to them. How did you find them? And it's okay if you found them on a Google search. Just say, I was looking for cool people that do X, Y, and Z, and your name popped up on my Google search. That's a great introduction. If you know them personally, say, hey, I know you from X, Y, and Z. If it's been a while, you want to remind them how they know you. Or if you were introduced to them through someone else or someone mentioned them, or hey, I heard someone mention you on this great podcast, the Music Business Breakthrough Podcast, then you can let them know how are you two related now. That's all you need to do in the first sentence. The next part of the pitch is you want to get them present to what is possible and that you understand what they could potentially be struggling with. For example, if you're reaching out to a music supervisor that you got the contact for, they're probably inundated with pitches and they're trying to find that perfect song for whatever project they're working on. Ideally, you have done your research already on what that is. That's part of the before of the pitch that is sometimes relative depending on who you are pitching to. So if you've done your research, you know exactly what their problem is. So you can just say an assumption. This is the one time where I think assumptions are actually a good thing. You can say something along the lines of, I'm assuming you're really busy, so I'll be brief. Or I'm assuming that you're getting tons and tons of songs in, but you're really looking for that perfect fit. And then you can go right into the solution. I think I have what you're looking for. The other angle is what's a struggle that they've had in the past with musicians that sets you aside and makes you different. For example, when you're playing gigs, a lot of times you'll, especially like rock venues and sort of smaller venues, sometimes bands are late, they get drunk, they're messy. If you're like, hey, I have a crowd in this area, they will buy a lot at the bar, and I will be on time and impeccable. And if you're really, really clear and writing a beautifully formatted email, and we'll talk about that in a second, you're going to look more professional and they're going to assume, hey, these people are not going to ghost me. They're not going to show up drunk. They're not going to be late, right? So you can actually show the person that you're solving a problem that they've had in the past, but they're not going to experience with you. The next part of the pitch, and this is the most important part of any pitch to anyone, is your yes or no request. What I mean by a yes or no request is the person can answer yes, no. They also may be able to answer maybe, or they may be able to negotiate. Say, I can't do Tuesday, but I could book you on Thursday, right? So you want to ask a question so that they can answer it really powerfully. A yes-no request is something that's been studied in that your brain is more likely to answer the question if it's a yes-no request. So let me show you an example. If I say, check out my hat, you may look at my hat, right? But if I say, do you like my hat? Which is a yes or no question, your brain just formed the answer. And now, because there's an answer formulated, you're much more likely to express it. I don't actually care what you think about my hat, but you get the point, right? So you want them to have the same thing happen and activated in their brain. You want them to answer the question, oh, yes, I am available on that time. So yes, I do want to get back to them. Yes, I am interested. So the way you want to format this question is still very polite. We don't want to be demanding, right? By the way, language like check out my hat, it's linguistically a command. You might as well have said, go vacuum my house. That's how that can land for some people. So you want to make sure the yes-no request is giving them power versus demanding something from them. It's another reason why we format the request in a yes-no format. So let's talk about how you can possibly word your yes or no request. So perhaps you're looking to meet with someone or to book a date. So if there's a date involved, you want to just be really specific. Here's why. You don't want to say, hey, can you book me sometime this year? Or can you book me? That is so open-ended, even though it technically is a yes or no request. Can you book me? Yes or no, right? But you want to take out all of the work that this person potentially has to do. So looking at their calendar and trying to figure out and make it work for you, and then they have to go back and forth, like it's a lot, right? So you want to be specific in your dates. Hi, are you available to talk Tuesday at 3 o'clock, Saturday at 1 o'clock, or Sunday at 5 o'clock? Giving 3 options for a potential meeting or conversation is a great thing to do. People can say, yes, that time works for me, or they can say, I can't do 3, but I can do 4. It's much more easy to get in and negotiate when there's something specific to start with. Same thing with the booking the gigs. Hi, I'll be in your area the entire month. I'm specifically looking at Friday the 15th or Saturday the 16th. If those dates are not available, then they can come back and say, well, you're here the whole month. And then it gives them some parameters. Parameters sometimes in the nebulous sort of idealistic world feel like they're constricting, but really there's so much freedom inside of a parameter and there's so much space to negotiate from specificity. So don't shy away from being as specific as possible. You're going to save yourself and them a ton of work. Okay, so now that we've gotten to the yes or no request inside of our pitch, then you want to close like you would a normal, polite, professional email saying, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you want more information on me, my link is below. Notice that there wasn't a lot of information about me in here, just in the little solution sentence of, I'm an artist that is in this genre and can show up for you, or I have a song that blah, 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 right? So you're not giving them a ton of stuff. You're just giving them enough to know that they want to have a conversation or that they want to click that link in your signature. Now, let's talk about subject lines. I never write a subject line until after the email is complete. This goes for any email I send to anyone, whether it's my fans or a friend. I wait to see what the email ends up looking like and feeling like. And then what I do is I put something in the subject line that will be clear as well as invoke some sort of curiosity. What you don't want to do in a subject line is you don't want to summarize the email, because then there's no point for them to open the email and hear your great pitch. You want them to be interested. So for booking, for example, I would say booking inquiry for June, and I'll give a generic date so that they know, and when they search, they can easily see that, but I don't go into the details in the subject line. You want to keep them nice and short so they're not really hard to read, especially if someone's on their mobile device, which most people right now are reading emails on their mobile devices. So keep it short and sweet, very clear. Don't try to be cutesy. All right, so we've talked about the before the email, getting your intention. and possibly doing some research. We've talked about the actual pitch itself. Now let's talk about follow-up. This is the biggest, most underrated part of a pitch that musicians get really discouraged about. 70% of your yeses are going to come from a second or third follow-up. So don't get discouraged if you hear crickets after the first pitch. If you sent an email and say, oh, I never heard back, oh well. Think about how many times you need to get an email twice in order to respond, or maybe even 3 times. So let's make sure that your follow-up strategy is just as powerful as the pitch itself. So here's how to do that. When I'm pitching someone for the first time, I'll send a pitch one week and I'll let a weekend go by. It doesn't matter what day I sent that pitch on, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever, Wednesday. I let a weekend go by so that the following week, whatever day is convenient for me and in my calendar to follow up with that person, I can say, hi, I'm following up on the email I sent last week. When a weekend goes by, it's much easier to say last week. It's copied below for your convenience. And then I literally copy the entire email that I sent before into that email. I don't forward it. I actually copy it. So the follow-up is not a new pitch. I'm not asking another yes or no question. I just say, it's below for your convenience. I'm looking forward to hearing your response. And the subject line, you can keep it the same, or you can put re in front of it with the colon and say, so that it's slightly different, but you can tell that it's a follow-up. They can tell that it's different. And if they're using Gmail, it won't categorize it and put it in a folder when the first one was sent, which you don't want. You want to be top of the inbox. So depending on what you're pitching and what you're pitching for and the timeline and the deadline and your particular goal for this pitch, you can send 2 of those. Say, hi, I'm just following up again from my last email, and you copy and paste the very first one, the one that has that awesome pitch in it. Here's for your convenience. Usually by the 3rd time, what I do is say, I'm guessing you're really busy. I haven't heard no from you, so I don't know if this is interesting or not. Do I have permission to continue to follow up with you on the email that I sent initially? Copy and paste below. And that email usually gets me the response. And oftentimes it's, oh my God, I'm so busy, or this went to junk. Thank you for sending this again. And that's the one where I usually see the response if I hadn't up until that point. So don't be afraid to follow up. You're not being a burden. You're not being too persistent, but max it out at 3. And then if you ask permission, can I continue to follow up until I hear from you? Sometimes people write back like, oh, we're not looking for this right now. Thanks anyway. And then you'll have your no, right? By the way, there's nothing wrong with no. There's nothing wrong with yes. We don't like crickets because then we don't have data. If you get a no, then you know what to do next. There's more information with a no. When you get a yes, there's something else to do. Either way, there's something to do with a no or a yes. So we want an answer. That's the name of the game here, is to get a response so that we can use that response to figure out what our next actions are to take. So if you get a no, then you don't follow up anymore. If you don't hear anything, then put in your schedule whether you want to follow up once a month or once every 6 months. It depends, again, on who this person is and what you're going after. For music licensing and sync placements, I have a lot of contacts in that world, and I regularly follow up when I have a new project, usually every 6 months, and say, hey, I'm just touching base, wanted to see if you have any projects. I wanted to share this. Would you take a listen? There's my yes or no question. And let me know if you have any need for this. That can be a really quick, easy follow-up for someone that you've been in contact in the past, but you haven't gotten any work from recently. So all this is to say, don't think about just the question and the thing you want from them. Make sure you're empowering yourself and empowering them to give you an answer. And that requires you to think about what you want before the pitch, how to craft the pitch really concisely, and then the follow-up. In case that pitch landed at a bad time for them, you want to make sure that you're showing them that you're serious about your pitch and you're also respectful of their time and their inbox. If you are interested in digging more into pitching, I talk a lot about it in Amplify, but I also have a program called The Perfect Pitch. You can go to www.inthekey.co/perfectpitch. It's also available if you sign up for Amplify Pro, which is the annual plan. All right, I'll see you in the next episode.